Hi there, I'm Jeff with Tutor, and in this video, I'm going to share with you how to replace a cracked tile. So if you've got porcelain or ceramic tiles in your kitchen, bathroom, or maybe in your laundry room, and one of them's come loose or it's cracked or damaged, this video is going to walk you through how to replace that tile step by step. So stay tuned, I've got a lot of great tips for you, and you're going to save yourself some money by DIYing this yourself. So let's get to it. I know it's hard to tell, but this tile is damaged and I need to remove it. But the first step is to remove all the grout that surrounds the perimeter of the tile. There are a multitude of tools that you can use to remove the grout. You've got grout saws, manual grout saws like these. You also have a carbide tipped knife like this one here that you can use to score the grout. But my ultimate favorite tool is an oscillating multi-tool like this one here by Bosch with a grout removal attachment on it. This is the #1 way to remove grout, but if you can't afford this or you don't have one, not a big deal. It's just going to take you a little bit longer using these tools. Now, before you remove a cracked tile, you've got to take some safety precautions. So protect your eyes with either goggles or safety glasses like these ones. Put on some gloves and wear a long sleeve shirt, because when you smack a tile, shards of it go everywhere and anywhere, and they will cut, the shards will cut your skin. So protect your skin, and also protect your lungs by wearing a respirator like this one. Now I'm going to show you why I like oscillating multi-tools for removing grout. Oops, I almost forgot one more safety precaution, and that's hearing protection. If you're going to use an oscillating multi-tool, make sure you wear some hearing protection because it gets loud fast. Notice how the multi-tool turns the grout into a fine powder. It does an awesome job of removing the grout. And if it gets too dusty, you can use a vacuum while you're using the multi-tool, or you can turn on the bathroom ventilation fan to help out with the dust. It took me about 5 to 7 minutes to remove all the grout around this tile using the oscillating multi-tool, and that's why it's so fantastic. Whatever tool you use, just be careful not to gouge any of the neighboring tiles. What you need to do next is drill some holes, some pilot holes, into the center of the tile. You can use a 1/4 inch carbide tipped ceramic drill bit for this job. Now what I like to do is place some blue tape, some blue painter's tape into the center of the tile so that the drill bit can grip into the tape and go down through the glaze that is on the ceramic or porcelain tile. I'm only drilling about a 1/4 inch down through the tile because the tile itself is only 1/4 inch. You can take your hammer and you can take a chisel. Now in this case, this is a 3/8 inch chisel, and what I'm going to do is pound it down into these holes and pry up the tile from the inside, working my way to the outside perimeter. That way I'm not going to damage the surrounding tiles. So again, start in the holes that you just drilled. Oh, and leaving the blue tape on helps reduce the splintering of the tile. Once you get a big enough hole, you can switch from the smaller chisel to a larger chisel. Now, the other thing that I wanted to tell you about is you've gone deep enough when you start to see ridge marks in the substrate. The ridge marks are from the thin set mortar that was used to adhere the tile to the substrate. So that's when you've gone far enough and you don't need to go any deeper. And if you really want the process to move a lot faster, you can go with a chisel of this size, okay? And this will help really chip into the tile and move huge chunks of it. Old thin set on top of cement board or whatever backer substrate you have needs to be removed. Otherwise your tile won't sit even with the surrounding tiles. So you can either chisel it out using a hammer and a chisel, or you can try to use the opposite end of your hammer to pry it off. I'm going to be frank with you, trying to get the mortar out is a real pain in the you-know-what, but you can do it, and once you get to the point whereby you think you're ready, You should dry fit the tile. After vacuuming, you should dry fit the tile into the space. Okay, that appears to be pretty good. You need to take one extra step. Use a level. So place a level on the tile and make sure that the tile itself is pretty level and just slightly depressed such that it's lower than the adjacent tiles. Because when you go to put the thin set mortar on below the tile, it's going to raise the tile up just a slight bit. So you always want the new tile to be slightly lower than the surrounding tiles. Now that I'm finally done smacking that tile to pieces, I can roll my sleeves up and apply some mortar to the base that we're going to put the tile on. Unfortunately, you might dig out some divots in the cement board. So no big deal here. I mean, obviously you would prefer not to do this, but what you can do is just put some mortar in its place and you should be good to go. That'll provide a nice substrate for the tile to rest on. So what I did was mix up some mortar using a margin trowel, okay? And you want the consistency to be pretty thick, like so. It has to just barely fall off the trowel. And what I'm gonna do is place some of this mortar into the depressions that I made with my chisel. So I'm just going to replace the cement board that I broke apart. In an ideal world, I would let this mortar solidify. But because it's a little bit tricky replacing a tile, I want to actually not do that, and I'm going to trowel some more thin set on using a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch trowel. What that means is the space in between the notches is 1/4 inch and the depth is 1/4 inch. And I'm using this type of trowel because the tile I'm using is 1/4 inch high or 1/4 inch deep. So with your trowel at a 45-degree angle, you can move it across the bed and create these ridges. Admittedly, the ridges in the middle are not that great, so I need to go back over that. But the ridges should stand up on their own. That's how you know that you've mixed your thin set the correct way. Now, the other thing that you can do to ensure that your tile isn't going anywhere is back butter it. And what this means is just simply applying a thin coat of the mortar to the back of the tile. With the tile back buttered and my mortar in place, I can set the tile. Once you have the tile set, you should remove any mortar that oozes up out of the grout joints because it is a real pain in the rear end to get it out once it dries. So you can use any kind of tool. You can use a screwdriver. You could use anything you want to remove that mortar, but make sure you get it out immediately after you set the tile. Then you can use a paper towel to just get the rest of the mortar off the tile. And the last thing you should do is make sure all the corners of the new tile line up. And you can use tile spacers for this, although in my case I'm just going to eye it because I only have one tile to replace. But again, make sure all four corners are lined up even with the other grout joints. After waiting about 2 to 3 hours for the thin set mortar to set up, now it's time to add grout. And you want your grout to have the consistency of thick peanut butter. So what I like to do is scoop the grout onto the tile. So here you go. Then you can use a rubber float like this one here to spread it into the joints. Oh, and by the way, if you're not sure what color grout to use, you can take a sample of the existing grout to the store, and they have these little grout samples. You can try to match it up based on the samples And that's how I did it for the grout that we have here in the bathroom. And always wear chemically resistant gloves when you're spreading the grout because it can dry out your hands. Now because this is only one tile, what I'm going to do is basically smush the grout into the grout line. And then I'm going to move the grout float at a 45-degree angle across the grout line. And now we'll add the slight depression in the grout that I want and remove a good portion of it off the surface of the tile. If you want to completely get a nice clean sweep, you can hold the grout float at a 90-degree angle. Let the grout set up according to the directions on the bag, so anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes typically. You'll develop a haze on the top of the tile, which you'll then remove, and I'll show you that next. Once the grout is set up, it's time to use a sponge, like this one here, to clean it up. So take a bucket of water, dunk the sponge in, wring it out, and wipe off the surface. And typically, what I like to do is tool the grout lines so they're a little bit concave with the grout sponge. And it's super important to get all of the grout off the tile. Otherwise, if it dries, it's a mess because obviously grout hardens up pretty good. So get the grout off any of the tile surface and dry it off. After waiting about 60 minutes, what you should do is buff the surface of the tile. And what I like to use is a microfiber cloth. You may like something else a little bit better, but in my experience, microfiber cloths are awesome and they do a great job of cleaning off glazed surfaces like this tile. And the final step is to add grout sealer to the grout. Alright, that's it. That's how you replace a cracked tile. It wasn't that bad, right? You know, and these skill sets will serve you well in your home ownership adventure, right? So saving yourself 50 bucks here, 75 bucks there, it adds up over 30 years, right? So if you've got any questions about this particular project, please let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to help you out. And remember, if you haven't already done so, you can sign up for my email newsletter by going to homerepairtutor.com. You'll get new tips that'll help save you money, time, and make you feel less overwhelmed with all the projects that you have. Every single week you'll get these tips on Friday. So sign up for the email newsletter, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel over on YouTube. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for dropping by. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.